Have you ever thought about why the Philippines went through so many forms of government? In this documentary, we revisit the crucial moments: barangay rule, Spanish control, the reform movement, revolutions, American rule, and liberation. Before colonial rule, the earliest form of Filipino government was the barangay system. It is a small community of 30 to 100 families. At the center of leadership stood the dati, the chief of the barangay. His authority rested on respect, not fear, and he ruled with the advice of the council of elders known as Maginoo. The society was divided into three major classes. First is Maginoo. They are nobles, advisors, and the ruling families. Second is Timawa. They are free people, warriors, and skilled workers. Lastly is Alipin. They are dependent class, usually debt-bound, but still protected by barangay law. Justice came from customary laws called batasan, carried through oral tradition. Disputes were settled through mediation or in some cases, trial by ordeal. This early government was small yet democratic in spirit. Leadership was earned, not merely inherited. But soon, this independent barangay's peaceful way of life was about to change drastically when the first foreign ships appeared on the horizon.
Spain colonized the Philippines. It replaced the traditional barangay governance system with a highly centralized colonial administration. The colony was ruled by the Governor-General, the king's representative, who led full executive, legislative, and judicial powers. Under him were alcaldes mayores, provincial governors, gobernadorcillos, town officials usually elected from the Principalia, cabezas de barangay, the barangay level leaders. The most influential force was not the government, but it was the Catholic Church. Friars controlled schools, censuses, land partition called encomienda system, marriages, and moral life. Church and state become one intertwined power. The social class system evolved into Peninsulares, Spaniards from Spain; Insulares, Spaniards born in the Philippines; Indios, the native Filipino, lowest in rank. This rigid hierarchy created deep inequality, one that would eventually fuel resistance, and eventually, Filipinos would no longer stay silent.
By the late 1800s, the Ilustrados educated Filipinos challenged the colonial system through the reform movement. They demanded political representation, equality before the law, and an end to friar abuses. Their government-related demands included a Filipino delegate in the Spanish Cortes, civil liberties, secularization of parishes, and government reforms based on justice, not oppression. The Ilustrados fought with ideas, not weapons. Their tools were essays, speeches, and journalism. Jose Rizal, through his novels, he exposed how the friars abused both political and spiritual authority. But Spain rejected these reforms, and when Rizal was executed, reform turned into revolution because after Rizal's death, change would no longer come from pen and paper, but from the battlefield.
The Katipunan, founded by Andres Bonifacio in 1892. It was more than a secret society. It was a fully organized revolutionary government operated outside Spanish control. Supremo, the executive leader, responsible for overall strategy and coordination of revolutionary activities. Bonifacio held both political and military authority. Kataas-taasang kapulungan, the central decision-making body and regulation for the organization. Sangguniang Bayan, provincial council and manage local recruitment. Sangguniang Balangay, local council that directly interact with members and enforce discipline within ranks. Its goal, a nation run by Filipinos, not colonizers. Women played crucial supporting roles, primarily as messengers, organizers, and financiers, showing the flexibility of social roles with the revolutionary government. In 1896, the revolution began. Filipinos fought across Luzon, gaining strength until Emilio Aguinaldo rose as military leader. The Katipunan shows that even under colonial oppression, we can still make and operate a structured and a capable government system. And as battles continued, Filipinos took the next step, forming their first ever republic under a formal government.
The traces of the almost 400 years of Spanish rule over the Philippines. But even more striking is the more recent influence of the United States.
In 1899, the first Philippine Republic was established with the Malolos Constitution. It was the first democratic constitution in Asia. Unlike the Katipunan, this was structured mostly according to a written constitution that was drafted primarily by Felipe Calderon. Government structure: President Emilio Aguinaldo, holding executive power and responsible for enforcing laws. Legislature: Malolos Congress, which is composed of elected representatives from provinces and towns, responsible for lawmaking and important treaties. Cabinet: executive departments like Secretaries of War, Foreign Affairs, Finance, Interior, and Justice. Each department is responsible for a sector of governance. And lastly, Judiciary. Supreme Court and local courts enforce laws and provide legal supervision. Evidently, leadership came literally from the revolutionary elites, but the Republic aimed to represent provincial communities that were also involved in the struggles. They sought to replace the Spanish-era hierarchies with a system based on law and civil participation. But Spain surrendering the Philippines to the United States under the Treaty of Paris complicated matters a lot. The new republic now faced American occupation, and the Philippine-American War began testing the capability of the newly established government. Despite resistance, the young republic was overpowered by American forces, and under the United States, the Philippines entered a new kind of political training ground.
Arthur, Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces in the Far East announced, to spare the capital from the ravages of war, I have today declared Manila as an open city.
The Americans replaced the military government with the civil government, led by the civil governor, later Governor General, the Philippine Commission, or the upper lawmaking body, the Philippine Assembly, or the elected lower house. This introduced a bicameral legislature and familiarized Filipinos with elections, political parties, and constitutional practices. Public education expanded as the foundation of political training, infrastructure, and bureaucracy developed. Over time, the colony moved towards self-rule. Despite the colonial nature, the American period introduced a constitutional ideas and political parties. This progression of governance led to a new phase in 1935, in which preparation would finally take place in the creation of the Commonwealth government.
In 1935, the Commonwealth government was established. The Tidings-McDuffie Act allowed Filipinos to shape their own government for a 10-year transition. Government structure under the 1935 Constitution: President Manuel L. Quezon, Vice President Sergio Osmeña, Unicameral National Assembly, and the Supreme Court. The Commonwealth emphasized national language, defense, economic planning, and constitutional governance. For the first time, Filipinos were governing themselves under an American-approved constitution. Independence was within reach. Freedom was almost within reach, not until World War II erupted and Japan invaded the Philippines.
In 1941, Japan invaded the Philippines. They established the Second Philippine Republic, a puppet state led by President Jose P. Laurel. But real power rested in the Japanese military. The government operated under occupation, enforcing strict military control or martial rule, censorship and surveillance, economy regulated through rationing, and forced labor, showing limited freedom to Filipinos. Despite this, Filipinos formed guerrilla governments that organized resistance, justice, and communication networks. By 1945, American and Filipino forces liberated the islands. The war left the nation devastated, but the spirit of the Filipino people remained unbroken. After centuries of changing rulers and governments, from barangay rule to empires, to revolution and war, the Philippines finally reclaimed its freedom and rebuilt its nation, which led us to have full independence in 1946. Until now, our fight for a just and honest government still continues, because freedom won is not freedom that ends.